To order. Prayer by the chaplain.
This prayer is dedicated to the memory of Ed Burdick, who is the former chief clerk of the House. Let us pray. We pause, O God, to give you thanks and praise for all that you have done for us, for the splendor of creation and the beauty of this fragile earth, our island home, and especially for the great blessings of this common life which bind us together, for family and friends, for co-workers, for this dedicated staff. Holy and life-giving Spirit, in this time of challenge and change, send us courage and wisdom and foresight to provide for the well-being of all under your care. For Minnesota's people, its cities and towns, its farms, its woods and waters and prairies, that all may be brought under the protection of your healing wings. Shower this deliberative body with the sweetness and goodness of having given themselves to the service of others. Inspire us, draw our hearts to thee, so guide our minds, so fill our imagination, so control our will, we pray, that having done your will during the day, we may, when night comes, rejoice to give you thanks and praise. Amen.
Members, our chaplain for the day is Reverend K. Provine, chaplain at Episcopal Homes in St. Paul, Minnesota. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal for the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 87th Session, 2012, 71st day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Thursday, February 9th, 2012.
If there are no objections, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will stand as corrected by the Chief Clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. Call the member from Ottertail, Representative Nornis. For what purpose do you rise?
Point of personal privilege.
State your point of personal privilege, Representative Nornis.
Members, if I get your attention, please.
1 second, Representative Nornis. Members, please. We have some guests I believe Representative Nornis would like to introduce.
Members, we have some special guests today with us from Winnipeg, or from Manitoba, Canada. And these special guests are from the Manitoba Legislative Internship Program, a program established in 1985 by the Manitoba Legislative Assembly. The program provides graduates of the Manitoba universities or graduates of other universities who are permanent residents of Manitoba with an opportunity to experience firsthand the legislative process. The interns participate in a series of seminars dealing with all aspects of the governmental process. Early in the 1990s, the program has included a 4-day study tour of the Minnesota State Legislature. So we're pleased today to introduce the 6 participants who are with us here today, and they'll stand as I read their name. First, I'd like to introduce Lizanne Fried Lubchak, Tim Johnson. Also, we have with us today Anna Morosky, Kai Olson, Jason Stitt, and Andrew Todd. So would you please give them a warm welcome, please.
Thank you, Representative Nornis. I call the member from Ramsey, Representative McFarland. For what purpose do you rise?
Point of personal privilege.
State your point of personal privilege.
Thank you. Members, I just wanted to have you recognize today some guests that we have. Last Thursday, I reminded you about the Permanent School Fund Advisory Committee was having our meeting this morning, and we had 2 guests. Margaret Bird, who has worked for 36 years to reform the management of school trust lands in Utah and is a director of the Children's Land Alliance Supporting Schools class, which is a national organization. And also Kevin Carter. He's the director of the State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration and leads all the activities of the agency. He has more than 25 years of experience in the management of trust lands. And before we recognize him, I'd like to yield to Representative Dietrich.
Call the member from Hennepin, Representative Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative McFarland. Especially thank you, Representative McFarland, for your leadership on the Permanent School Advisory Committee. You have done a lot with that committee, and what you have done most recently is invited Kevin Carter and Margaret Bird to come and speak to the Advisory Committee, and it's been a great experience. So I would personally like to take the opportunity to thank those 2 for coming to the state of Minnesota to tell their school trust land story. It is my hope that as many of you as possible will take the time to hear the school trust land story of Utah and talk to them personally. And then finally, I would like to say is that what I hope is that their story will inspire the state of Minnesota to reform the management of their school trust lands. Thank you very much.
Representative McFarland.
And so I'd like to recognize Margaret Bird and Kevin Carter sitting up front here. Thank you.
Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this business has been placed on each member's desk. If there are no objections, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objections, reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading House File 1043.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1535.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1542.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1816.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1850.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1870.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1926.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1984.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 2046.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 2071.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 2082.
Second reading. Second reading of Senate files.
Second reading, Senate File 1183.
Second reading. Introduction of House Files. The following House Files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will read these House Files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 2187 through 2244.
First reading, House File 2187 through 2244. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the adoption of by the Senate of the following House Concurrent Resolution. House Concurrent Resolution number 5, a resolution adopting deadlines for the 2012 regular session. Signed, Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
Calendar for the day. First bill on the calendar today is House File 1770. The Chief Clerk will report the bill.
House File 1770 on the calendar for the day, and first engrossment, an act relating to education.
I call on the member from Washington, Representative Kieffer, to present your bill. One minute, please, Representative Kieffer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute, please, Representative Kieffer. Members, if you could please take your conversations to the alcoves, or better yet, the retiring room, so that the bills that are being presented on the House floor can be heard.
Mr. Speaker, I first want to thank the members of the Education Committee for a thoughtful discussion on this bill. I want to thank my co-author, Representative Kath. And this bill is coming back to us from last year. We've addressed some of the veto issues, or I believe all the veto issues that the governor was concerned with. And so I ask your support for House File 1770, which would require all teachers to pass the METL Basic Skills exam before they're granted a license in Minnesota to teach in the classroom. Thank you.
Discussion to the bill. The member from Scott, Representative Biskins, to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, with this being the first bill up and things getting rocking and rolling, I have turned into an amendment that's up being copied right now. So I hope prior to going to third reading, we will have a chance to address that amendment.
Members, as it is the first bill, some of the amendments have not been able to be copied. As is our House tradition, we will wait until each member has a copy of the amendment, especially the author of the bill, before we present the amendment.
Can you give that to the author?
Mr. Speaker.
The member from Scott, Representative Biskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I could, as we wait for the amendment, ask a couple of questions of the author of the bill. If that'll be clarifying, that'll speed up the amendment itself when it comes before us.
Representative Biskins, we are, since the amendment has not been presented at the desk, we are in discussion to the bill, so that would be in order. Representative Biskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, you rightly term the exam that has to be passed as the basic skills exam. Representative, when would a student take this basic skills exam? Well, in other words, what level of high school, preschool, university level of proficiency in reading, writing, and mathematics would be necessary to pass this basic skills exam? What do the psychometricians say, Representative?
She will yield. 1 minute, please, Representative Kieffer. Members, please. If you could take your conversations to the back room. The alcove does not seem to work today. Please take your conversations to the back room, as Representative Kieffer could not hear the question being asked halfway across the floor. Thank you, members. The member from Washington will yield. Representative Kieffer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Biskins. It's called the METL test. It's a Minnesota Teacher Licensure Examination. This is different than what used to be required, which was called a praxis. The METL is specific towards students who are in college, probably second level college expectations. And a student may at any time take that test. It's an online test, and they could pass it maybe before they even enter their freshman year in college. They might want to wait till they're a senior to take it. Currently in Minnesota, they can take the test and fail to pass the test for 3 years while they're teaching in a classroom. And that's what this bill addresses. That's unacceptable. It closes that window where teachers may be having a provisional license but not be able to actually pass the medal examination. Thank you.
Member from Scott, Representative Biskins.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that description. Members, just so you know, and I don't want to, sit here and blow smoke or pretend that I'm making a case for something that I'm not. Number one is that this is called the basic skills exam for entering teacher licensure program. Understand, members, this is not like a high school basic skills exam. The old practice basic skills exam was actually written at an 8th grade level in reading, writing, and mathematics. This is not that test. Don't get me wrong, I'm not making the argument that this is that test. This test requires a lot more rigor than the praxis test required. All right? So, in case somebody thinks I'm trying to make something of this that I'm not, that's not the case. This test, as the representative mentioned, rightly so, the psychometricians have stated that this test is appropriate for a student in their second year of the university level. Second year of university level, a sophomore in college. Members, when you're a sophomore in college, you should have acquired the skills and knowledge necessary to pass this basic skills exam. When you're a sophomore in college, members, it's an appropriate time to declare your major and enter into a program of study. It would seem to me logical that to enter into a program of study, you should be able to pass the basic skills exam required for that program of study. Members, I want to share with you some statistics that I pulled up, and these are current statistics.
Representative Biskins, 1 minute, please. Members, please. And since Representative Biskins has given me the opportunity, maybe this will help as we have some celebrities in the room. If you could, please, members, in the alcove to my right, we have 2 former members joining us today. Representative Dominguez from the DFL party, who served from 2007 to 2008. We also have another guest with us today, Congressman serving from 2003 to 2006, Congressman Keith Ellison. Welcome back. And now, members, if you could please. We have some students on the floor watching and listening today intently. Representative Biskins, you still have the floor. Members, please take your conversations to the alcove or to the retiring room so that the members on the floor can hear the debate. Representative Biskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point, Representative Biskins.
Mr. Speaker, has the amendment been passed out so that I may speak directly to the amendment?
Representative Biskins, the amendment has been to the back row. If you'd like, you can suspend. I'll have the Chief Clerk introduce the amendment, and then you can proceed on to the amendment.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I would prefer that. Thank you.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Biskins moving to amend House File 1770 to first engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded A7.
Call the member from Scott, Representative Biskins, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members of the legislature. I want to share with you some alarming statistics that I know we've heard about, but speak directly, members, to this bill. Members, according to the Bureau of Statistics, the United States Bureau of Statistics, we currently have in the United States 320,000 waiters and waitresses working in the United States who have a 4-year bachelor's degree. And members, all the incredible debt that come with that, and all the incredible costs that taxpayers of the individual states have paid for that, which, if I'm not mistaken, is about 50-50. Members, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in the United States of America, we currently have 17 million college graduates doing jobs requiring less than the skill levels associated with a bachelor's degree. 17 million members. Goodness sakes. I don't know if you've heard this recently. I keep track of the Daily Cause as one of my sources of enlightened information, and they've been running a number of articles and series on how college tuition debt and what we are doing to the young men and young women of this country is the next great financial disaster after the mortgage crisis to hit this country. And the saddest thing is what we are doing to these 23 and 24-year-old people, members, who are coming out of colleges and universities with a sheepskin and no job. We have told them, you know that $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 debt that you have? You can never get rid of it. You cannot file bankruptcy. You cannot look for forbearances. You cannot look to restructure. This is your debt, and you will pay it. And this is what we're doing to kids. Because we're putting in their mind ideas of grandeur, and colleges and universities are not upholding their end of the bargain by simply telling a student, you know what? This isn't the right path for you. And I'm telling you, if you are a sophomore or a junior in college and you can't pass a basic skills test in reading and writing and mathematics in order to get into a degree-earning program, then save your money and look for something else. Either that, members, either that, or we say to the colleges and universities, and more important, to the children and the parents, we're going to change things so substandard people can be standing in front of your child trying to teach them. There isn't a person here that wants that. We want, we need, we demand high quality, top-of-the-line educators standing in front of these children. And I'll tell you what, and you can just ask around to your constituents, there isn't a person out there with a high school and a college degree in teaching that says, holy buckets, there's such a shortage, we can walk right in and get a job. Folks, that isn't happening. For every job, when I was an administrator, we'd have one job in secondary school English and we'd have 250 applicants. For goodness sakes, think of, we'll hire one, but what about those 240 others who have this massive debt? They shouldn't have been in the profession in the first place, yet we let them. The colleges took the money, we gave them a diploma, and they're now waiters and waitresses. Shame on us for allowing a system like that. You know, this bill is looking to take care of the children and making sure they have a high-quality teacher in front of them. God bless. That's wonderful. And I'm voting for this bill, whether this amendment passes or not. But I hope every one of you can look at your heart and can think of that college student who's been given these visions of grandeur, who take this basic skills test in their sophomore or junior year of college and fail it miserably. And we say to them, you know, you're not going to enter this program till you can pass the test. That only seems logical. Instead, what we say to them is they can fail it miserably and okay, come on, join the program. We'll continue to have you ring up more and more costs, even though your odds of completing and succeeding are so diminished. Members of both sides of the aisle, the governor of the state of Minnesota, and I quote one more time, said this: changing education policy so that teacher candidates will eventually be required to pass the basic skills test before they enter a teacher preparation program is a logical way to increase both the rigor and quality in teacher preparation programming. Now, members, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of constituents who say, well, if it's logical, then the legislature isn't going to do it. I say to you, let's stand opposed right now and say, because it is logical, we are going to do it. Please support my amendment. I encourage a green vote. And Mr. Speaker, I ask for a roll call.
Representative Biskins has requested a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call on the amendment. Discussion to the amendment. Discussion. Representative Mariani to the Biskins amendment.
Excuse me, Mr. Speaker and members. Thank you, Representative Biskins. We had this discussion in the K-12 Policy Committee, and it would be good to hear the author of the bill respond to your amendment. But we had a very good conversation in Policy Committee, and on a bipartisan vote, we rejected this provision. And I'm not going to belabor the issue. I'm not going to speak as long as my good friend Representative Biskins just did. But members, yeah, it's hard to do. But members, you know, this really is about whether you're standing for opportunity or you're not. Whether you want to be a gatekeeper to opportunity and keep that gate very narrow, or whether or not you're going to turn to young people in the state of Minnesota and say, look, you know, pursue your dreams and your aspirations to be a great teacher professional. Do the best you can, and when you're done with your course of study, we'll test you, because there's no way we're going to place you in a classroom, give you a license to do that, unless you've completed your coursework and you've proven yourselves by taking this test. But Representative Biskins would upend that. And members, it's a little extreme, but a good analogy here would be requiring aspiring doctors to pass their medical boards in order to get into medical school. Why would we do that? The whole point of being in school is to acquire the knowledge and the skills, which you then have to demonstrate at the point of licensure. Representative Biskins misspoke when he described this test as an entry into a program of study. That is not what this test is. That is not what it was designed for. It was designed to be an assessment of how well you know the profession after you've done your program of study. If we want to test folks prior to going in, then let's create a test for that. But that's not this test. So members, stand for opportunity. Stand for aspiring teachers. Stand with the bipartisan vote in the K-12 Policy Committee and reject this amendment.
Members, one last time, please. If you could take your conversations to the retiring room so that the debate can be heard on the floor The members who are listening and participating in the debate would appreciate that. The member from Washington, Representative Kieffer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just encourage a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Slocum.
Mr. Speaker and members, part of the assessment that teachers take currently has to do with the reading, the math, the writing, and it's a day-long test, but it also has to do with pedagogy. And pedagogy is how you teach. You can be the world's greatest brainiac and not be able to reach kids. Some people who maybe aren't quite as smart as others can reach out and bond with kids and get information across to them. Is pedagogy part of this bill? I don't see it there. And I'm very concerned about it for that reason, because really it's not just about what you know, it's about conveying that and getting a response from children.
Discussion. The member from Mille Lacs, Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The MEDAL, or this basic skills test that includes writing, math, and reading, is taken by most of our young people or whomever is entering or wants to enter a teacher education program before they enter the program. And 67% of our students do succeed on their first try. So colleges really do encourage our candidates, our aspiring candidates to be teacher educators, to take this test immediately when they come to college and are considering a teaching career, because they want them to know whether or not they have this college readiness in reading, writing, and mathematics. So members, I'm going to be supporting this amendment. It is one I supported in committee, and I think it sends a strong message to K-12 and to higher ed that those students that you send out of our graduating classes to our colleges must be able to compete at a college-ready level, which is what this test is.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I heard opportunity, but I read mediocrity. Our students deserve the best of teachers. It has brought up med students. Med students, is it the MCAT? There is a test that doctors have to pass before even getting into the program. I think that our students deserve, well, then tell me what, I know there's a test that they pass to get into med school. The thought is, don't our students deserve the best teachers? Something has been wrong with the system. We're trying to fix it with adding this test. I think we need and require that students going into the program understand the core, because we're teaching them not that core, we're teaching them how to teach students. We're teaching them how to take and communicate to these students. So I support this amendment because I think we need, and the students deserve, an entrance exam like many other fields before we let them into the teaching program, and test them before they enter the licensure process and schools.
The member from Scott, Representative Biskins, to your amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And I understand, I believe it or not, unlike what the member from Virginia may say, I do have a heart. I do. And I'm empathetic to crushing hopes and dreams. But folks, we're talking about 19, 20, 21-year-olds. And I tell you, the good Lord crushed my hopes and dreams at about 15. When I realized I wasn't going to be 6'3" and 250 pounds and able to be a middle linebacker in the NFL. My hopes and dreams were crushed. And I remember my father saying, son, life just isn't fair. Folks, we're not talking about here hopes and dreams of somebody who wants to aspire something they're just not capable of. What we need to be talking about here, what we need to keep our eye on, is the hopes and dreams of the young children who are going to be taught by these students, number one, and number two, the hopes and dreams of the 21-year-olds who were saddling with up to $20,000 a year in debt for up to 3 years after they failed the test the first time, by allowing them to continue into the program and test again and fail, again and fail, again and fail. What about their hopes and dreams? Now saddled with 60, 90. There's even an example here of a family, a husband and wife, saddled with $250,000 in debt. They'll never repay. Government gave them a 30-year program. They could be paying off at $1,760 a month to repay that debt, but there's no excusing it. This is what we're doing to students in college, and this is potentially what we're doing to the kids in our schools. Now, members, I can't go on and conclude my passionate plea for you to support this, right, than by reading the very last definitive paragraph by our governor when it comes to this piece of legislation. And listen carefully, because if you vote against my amendment, you are sending a signal to the governor to veto the bill. Let me read his words. Increasing the level of rigor expected for future Minnesota teachers is a goal I support, said Governor Dayton. If you were to include language in an education bill that would eventually require individuals to pass the basic skills test before they enter a teacher preparation program, I will support it. My friends, the bill before us does not require that. Let's put it in the bill. Let's require it. Let's hold the governor to his word and see if he's ready to reach out to the legislature and work with us, because we gave him exactly what he asked for. Please support my amendment.
Member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if the author of the amendment would yield to a question.
He will yield. Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Biskins, I'm intrigued by your argument, but I don't have the advantage of sitting on that committee, so I haven't been able to really learn the ins and outs of this. And I'm wondering, your amendment refers to a skills examination. Representative Mariani was talking about something that people take later on. So my question to you is there a particular test in existence that you're talking about here? Is this something that is going to be standard across all schools, or is this something that's going to be ad hoc, made up by each school to decide whether what is in this examination? I mean, it seems to me I like your general idea here. I don't think it's wrong. But as a practical matter, is this something that we know what we're all talking about, or is this something that's just to send a general message that doesn't refer to any particular test in existence?
Member from Scott, Representative Biskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the representative from Olmsted, I'm not adverse to sending general messages, as you're well aware, but what this is talking to very specifically is called the Minnesota Teacher Licensure Examination. It is a statewide test. It is the same no matter what college or university you go to, no matter which licensure program you enter. The test is exactly the same, and the test is in reading, writing, mathematics, but there are also a series of pedagogical examinations that Representative Slocum mentioned. However, the basic skills portion of the Minnesota Teacher Licensure Examination is in reading, writing, and mathematics, and it is standardized throughout the state of Minnesota.
Member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Biskins, for that. I mean, it sounds then like this, I guess I would interpret this as just trying to send a general message and not perhaps being that serious, because it does sound to me then like you're expecting people to take a test to demonstrate a skill that they're going to learn in the program that they're entering, and that doesn't seem reasonable to me. It seems more reasonable to make sure that they have the basic skills to succeed in the program, but not to test them on something that they would then be learning later on.
Member from Steele, Representative Kath.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in opposition to Representative Biskins' amendment. I would ask for everybody to please follow the author of this bill, Representative Kieffer, on this. First and foremost, the name of the test itself, Minnesota Teachers Licensure Examination, is that the test itself is inherent into licensure. And that's exactly what this bill is trying to do. We are trying to remedy a problem that is that people are getting to bypass this examination for up to 3 years as they are the teacher of record in a classroom. That is the problem we are trying to remedy. And as Representative Kieffer's bill is elaborated, it is actually doing that. It is solving this problem. Another problem is Representative Biskins is saying that we don't want to strap people with a lot of debt. And I agree. But already in state law it says that upon entering a teacher program, preparation program, you must attempt this exam to find out exactly where you are testing, and then you must actually work within that teacher program to find out, am I going to be able to do this? But more importantly, Representative Biskins, what you are missing out here is that there are a lot of teacher preparation programs that require a full 4-year course load. If you require a student to take this test and they take it in the second semester of their sophomore year and they do not pass it, they will not then be able to take that and register for courses for the fall that will keep them on track for graduation within 4 years. So the reciprocal can be said too. That in the meantime, when they are maybe taking that one remedial math class so that they can pass the math portion, they are required to take a full semester off of teacher preparation program that is now going to put them on a course of 4.5, 5 years to graduate with a teaching licensure. So ladies and gentlemen, it's about a conversation. And what I want to do is say to those college programs, those teacher prep programs, yes, your students need to pass this in order to get a license and to be a teacher of record in our classrooms. But that conversation must be about with the adult that is taking those courses and is deciding that they want to be a teacher themselves. Members, please vote down this amendment. Let's move forward with the bill that I believe will get signed. Because Representative Biskins, if you were in that committee, you would also recognize that the governor stated that in order to sign a bill that said before the program was started that there would need to be an appeals process. An appeals process, ladies and gentlemen. And each college would have to set up an individual appeals process for someone that did not pass this exam. A much better way to approach this is to say before you get that license, you must pass this exam, and before you enter into that classroom and you're the teacher of record, then you better have these requirements met. Members, let's not go down the road of a horrible appeals process that was first stated. Let's do this. The Commissioner of Education, department head said that this would appease their statement of requiring an appeal because it would give time before this person would get their license in order to get some remediation if there's an area that they needed to pass. Let's vote this down. Let's move on and vote for a very good bill that Representative Kieffer has brought forward. Thank you.
Member from Washington, Representative Detmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I support the House File 1770 as stands, but I do have questions for the author, Representative Biskins. Would he yield to a question?
He will yield, Representative Detmer.
And Representative Biskins, if your amendment went on, would that mean that there would be no exam for teachers entering the teaching field after they completed their training and prior to getting their licensure?
Member from Scott, Representative Biskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative. The answer is no, because there would be no exam because the scenario you laid out couldn't possibly exist. In other words, if you didn't pass the basic skills exam, which I need to do a little refutation of statements made up by the other side of the aisle. Number one, the level of this exam is not college graduate level. The psychometrician said specifically in committee, even though I don't sit on it, Representative, I do educate myself on what was said. The psychometrician said that this is written at a first or second year college level, which is when most programs start. But Representative Detmer, to answer your question, no, the scenario couldn't exist. In other words, you could not complete a program and then take the test because you couldn't have gotten into the program in the first place. Much like members, you don't get into a medical program, complete all of the licensure, all of the coursework, and then take the test to get into the program. It just kind of sounds kind of silly.
Member from Washington, Representative Detmer.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't think that was my question. My question, I believe there should be an exam prior to getting your licensureship. If your amendment went on, would that eliminate any exam prior to licensureship?
The member from Scott will yield. Representative Biskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative. Great question. The answer is no. Because to get a licensure right now in the state of Minnesota, you have to get the degree. That's all. Get the degree, pass the praxis. All right? This bill says, pass the MTLEs and get the degree. Getting the degree is the definitive level of passing the tests in every single area necessary to become a teacher in this state.
Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, a roll call being requested, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 29 ayes and 104 nays, the amendment is not adopted. Seeing no further amendments at the desk, the clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1770.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 132 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed. Its title is agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for today is House File 300. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 300 on the calendar for today, the first engrossment, an act relating to education.
I call on the member from Mille Lacs, Representative Erickson, to present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 300 adds a language to the written notice that parents and guardians receive when their children are going to experience the childhood screening, the early childhood screening before they enter programs in our K-12 system or in early childhood. The written notice would advise parents that a vision test that is given during the screening may not be an adequate test for the child, so they are advised that a professional eye exam could be an option in addition to this early screening for vision. Members, I want you to know that across the nation in 2010, 9 million of our children turned up with the lazy eye syndrome and needed to have further testing in vision, and 18 million had a turning eye. So it is important, members, that as our children prepare to enter school and enter our K-12 system, that parents or guardians are made aware that vision problems could be that which places them in programs for which they really shouldn't be placed if their eyes could be remedied, their eye problems, that is, could be remedied. I ask for a yes vote on this bill.
Seeing no amendments at the desk, the clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 300.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 133 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed. The title is agreed to. Next bill on the calendar today is House File 1585. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 1585 on the calendar for today, the first engrossment, an act relating to education.
Calling the member from Pope, Representative Anderson P., to present your bill.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker and members. What this bill does is make a slight change to the length of time that a school has to wait and go through what's called a good faith effort before the State High School League steps in to place them back into an interscholastic conference. And the reason the length of time is significant is that because a lot of conferences today will schedule their events, football, basketball, and such, up to a year in advance. And as a school goes through this 180-day good faith effort and then eventually is placed back into a conference, sometimes they've missed the deadline for being part of the conference schedule for the following year. And as a result, they have to play a non-conference schedule, have to scramble for games to pick up and fill their schedules out for the following season. This happened back in my district, the town of Melrose. They were put back into the West Central Conference, but they missed the deadline for being included in the football schedule. So as a result, they have to play among their road games a town from Glenwood City, Wisconsin. They're going to meet halfway and play in Chaska. They're also going to play International Falls, which is about 260 miles away from Melrose. And they're going to meet halfway and play that game in Grand Rapids. So all this bill does is shorten that length of time from 180 days down to 90, after which the high school league steps in and places that team back into an interscholastic conference. It just makes that one change. The high school league supports the bill, and I would ask for your support. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing no amendments at the desk, the clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1585.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members, please vote. Clerk will close the roll. There being 133 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed. The title is agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for today is House File 1515. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 1515 on the calendar for today, the first engrossment, an act relating to real property.
I call on the member from Dakota, Representative Holberg, to present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is a bill that attempts to clarify state law. A couple years ago, we did some reform around renters' rights, which limited late fees to 8%. We've run into an issue where late fees for subsidized rental housing is governed by federal standards, and so this clarifies the state law that the federal standard regards to late fees in subsidized housing would apply. And also the second part of the bill, which changes the ability of public agencies to rely on the guidance they received from the public programs that support public housing when it comes to foreclosures. And this also these changes also conform the state law to federal standards. I'm not aware of any opposition to the bill and would be happy to stand for questions.
Seeing no amendments at the desk, the clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1515.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Clerk will close the roll. There being 133 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed. Its title is agreed to. Motions and resolutions. There's a copy of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there are no objections, we will take action on these items first. Hearing no objections, the motions prevail.
Atkins moves that House File 1582 be recalled from the Committee on Health and Human Services Reform and re-referred to the Committee on Human Services Finance.
Atkins. Member from Dakota, Representative Atkins.
That's my bill, Mr. Speaker. I love going to Health and Human Services Finance. There's no place I'd rather go. And it's my understanding that the chairs are desirous of that, so that's where we'll go. I'd appreciate members' support.
Discussion to the motion. Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the motion prevails.
That's it.
Announcements. The member from Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wanted to remind members that topics for the Legislative Auditor Topic Selection Subcommittee, we're still taking topics. You can get them to Representative Erickson or myself. We have the forms, or send them to the Legislative Auditor.
Thank you, Representative Hansen. Announcements. Member from Candy, Ohio, Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to take this moment to invite everybody tomorrow to come to the Great Hall here in the Capitol. We have several businesses from the Wilmer area that are involved in innovation and renewable energy that are going to be showcased tomorrow down there, going from 9 to 3 p.m. tomorrow. So we are working with Midwest Technology Campus, which is doing a lot with the University of Minnesota and a lot in the bioenergy area. So we invite you to come down and check out what's going on out in Candy, County and Wilmer tomorrow between 9 and 3, and there is free refreshments.
Announcements. Member from Anoka, Representative Hackbarth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, the Energy Subcommittee will be meeting 15 minutes after session in Room 5. That'd be approximately 4:15. We'll be meeting in room 5.
Announcements. Member from Washington, Representative Dean.
Mr. Speaker and members, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 4:30 p.m. Wednesday, February 15th, 2012.
Representative Dean moves when the House adjourns today, adjourns until 4:30 Wednesday, February 15th, 2012. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Representative Dean.
I move the House do now adjourn.
Representative Dean moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until 4:30 p.m. Wednesday, February 15th, 2012.